think I'll get started now. Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Giordano. I am with Esri Professional Services on the state and local government team, and I have been working with Hub for the past 2 years now. So I've been helping set up hubs. I've been helping people plan for implementing their hubs. I've been eat, sleep, dream hubs, and I have been doing this presentation for the past couple of years where we just kind of run you through some best practices. I really would like the goal of this to be for anyone who's in here, whether you have a hub up and running or you're planning on or just interested in the concept of hub, to really glean some information from this on how you could best operate this hub and help it succeed and scale for the long term. So here's a little overview. We'll go over the hub itself. I know sometimes just grasping that concept and what it means in the context of the rest of the ArcGIS platform is a tough thing to get at first. So we're going to go over that hub overview, and then we're going to go into kind of just an overview of how we usually see hubs play out when they're being created. So the planning and preparation, setting up your hub, creating pilot hub initiatives, so your first pilots, and then operating and growing your hub and scaling it into your organization. I'm hoping we'll have some time at the end for some question and answers too, and I'll be available after as well for any questions you guys might have. So let me just step through. The first thing is hub overview. So the hub has grown from the open data movement, which kicked off around mid-2000s. This is because we saw that when you put data out there, open data, that's not necessarily the format that a lot of people that you'd want to target might consume that data. But it is still a valuable avenue for getting information out through these products. And governments have these aspirations that they want to meet. And how they make sure that these aspirations are met is they use initiatives. So you might hear this concept initiative thrown around a lot. Initiatives is really like what you guys are planning to get done. So it's what your team is planning to get done. It could be very broad ranging. An initiative can have sub-initiatives. It's just the goal that you're trying to tackle at the end of this. And these initiatives, we're currently doing those right now. You guys are all doing those right now, even if you're implementing WebGIS or GIS applications without Hub right now. You're putting in a set of apps, using a team, and then spreading that to the users and the stakeholders that need to know the information that your initiative is trying to get out. So we see, you have your core staff who's going to be working on these applications, and then you kind of have all of these different stakeholders and collaborators across the process. Initiatives are really a way to think about how can we tie this all together so that all of these people can be structured around this, and we can all work towards the goal together with collaboration and the sharing of resources. That's where ArcGIS Hub came in. This was built off of open data because we saw a need for not just the ability to share data sets and get data sets out there, but also there was this intermediate need where it's sharing data sets with context and adding context to the data by using these initiatives to push them forward. So you're going to get your teams on board. You're going to put them into your initiative group. They'll be able to create content. You'll be able to use some of your apps and story maps, embed them into sites through our site builder, and then you'll be able to see performance dashboards on that as well. The good part, I think a lot of people when they first see Hub, they're thinking like we're gonna have to learn this whole new platform outside of ArcGIS Online and the ArcGIS web apps. But in reality, this is really built on top of ArcGIS Online, and it's gonna be, at least at first for you, starting by repurposing the stuff that you already have. So you are making these apps right now. You're making your dashboards, Survey 123, story maps. You have your data sets published to feature layers, and this is really gonna take those and puts a container around them and puts a container around your team and your group who's working on them, and allows you to share this out to your stakeholders and your end users in a way that kind of puts a middleman in between what you usually do. Usually you throw this up on a government site, right? You'll have just some hyperlinks to the feature services or the maps themselves. Hub has the ability to put this web page in the middle of that so you can provide, like I said, provide context in that data. So like I said, here's your data apps analysis. Before Hub, I think a lot of people would use, your app galleries to show off these, but they don't give too much context around that. It's kind of just cards with the apps on them. So now you have a way to link right from your government site to an initiative page that can put those apps embedded directly into the page, surveys, dashboards, web app viewers, and then also on the back end, give you the ability to track how people are interacting with that. Let me skip through here. just to give a little more context, ArcGIS Hub sits within ArcGIS Online. And out of ArcGIS Hub, you have the ability to create initiatives or sites. These sites can have multiple pages, and the pages can even connect to one another. If you might have heard ArcGIS Hub, there's a free version, which we like to call Hub Basic, and then there's the Hub Premium version, which is the one that you're paying for. That also adds on this additional element of the Hub community user accounts, which we'll get to in a little bit. You might also have heard enterprise sites, ArcGIS enterprise sites, very similar in the page builder aspect of ArcGIS Hub, but that's going to be based out of your portal rather than based out of ArcGIS Online. So that's going to be something more towards someone who needs something behind the firewall, internal use only. Going back to Hub Basic versus Hub Premium, Hub itself, in all forms, if you have ArcGIS Online right now, you can go on and you can create a page right now. You can add your apps into that page, share it between your team. But there are going to be a few features that are going to heighten the Hub experience through Hub Premium. So you're going to upgrade from just having sites and pages to having the concept of an initiative. So you can have these initiatives that you can templatize and you can recreate when you get that Hub Premium. You also have the ability to add events in. So there's a calendar widget that's added in, events. And you then also get this idea of the community users, which are going to be these named creator user accounts that are created in a separate ArcGIS Online organization that's attached to yours. And those are going to give the public or your users the ability to actually make apps and work with the data using that named account that they get through ArcGIS Hub Premium. So this is really going to extend this out to the people you want to incorporate into these initiatives, whether it be the public or maybe it's trusted collaborators who are going to be working directly on your groups. You can even add people from this community account into groups on ArcGIS Online as well. So it's really going to be, it really enhances this community collaboration aspect here by creating this separate organization. And this organization, they're connected, although they're not going to be able to see the content in your regular ArcGIS Online organization. This is a totally separate area where they'll be able to work in their own space here. As well as they'll be able to follow initiatives and check for updates. They'll be able to contribute into groups that you set up within this community initiative as well. So there's a lot of opportunity here in this community initiative to get community members or external stakeholders involved. So what does this mean? Putting it all together, this is a slide that I think resonates with a lot of people when you talk about like what is the hub when you put it all together. You have your initiative teams. So all of your maps, your apps, your data, all combined into this one area, which is hooked into your ArcGIS Online, which can be pulled from your enterprise or pulled from your databases elsewhere. And this team can be made up of people not only from your government or your organization, but you can also invite in other people from NGOs, other governments, community leaders, or community organizations. And from this, you're going to be able to create different initiatives. And all these initiatives can have their own site, they can have their own pages, but you'll be able to address a lot of the stuff that we do now where you make a lot of these loosely connected apps and you kind of just share out the links to all of them, but you're going to be able to put a structure around it and put a story around it. These will be able to be used by partners, your trusted partners, who will then be able to go out to the community, or you can directly link them to the community themselves. And this is going to be able to share your surveys, your story maps, get your message across for the initiative, and then also collect data from the public or your trusted stakeholders. What does it take to get to this point? Well, first you got to plan the hub, of course. And I like to think it's not just the technology that you have to think about here. Of course, this is built off of ArcGIS Online, so you need to have ArcGIS Online up and running. I think a good thing would be to make sure that your data is in order on ArcGIS Online before really diving into a lot of stuff that's going to take a lot of data usage with your initiatives. But I always like to use this slide. And it's not just the technology, you also have to be sure you have your people in order for this and your process. Because this isn't just like a one and done type setup for ArcGIS Hub. You're going to be making this so it scales and grows and continues to update as this data updates. This is going to be a little different than your traditional method of putting websites up, which is go through your communication department, right? You're going to have them approve the website changes and it's going to go through maybe a couple months later down the road. This is really going to be the data is going to be live coming from your feature services. And the pages are going to be able to be updated with new widgets or new apps or new pages, sub-pages as fast as you can do it and get it approved by your initial hub team. So it's really important to have your people in place, your technology in place, and the process that you're getting these hub initiatives out in place as well. This is a slide I like to show for who should be a part of this hub team. So I like to focus on the people aspect first. I used to say you should identify a person for each of these, but in reality, I think we all know that there's probably sometimes maybe a 1 or 2 person team that's going to be starting this hubs out and piloting these hubs. So I like to think of these as more like capabilities that you'll have with these. So within your core hub team, you should definitely have a project manager, so someone who owns this project and is responsible for communicating with your executive stakeholders on progress with this. You should have your hub sponsor or owner, so this is your executive champion who's going to be helping to coordinate between other executives and officials on the hub. You should have your technical lead. This is someone who's well-versed in WebGIS and GIS in general. Initiatives leads, you're going to have, and we'll get into this over here a little bit more, but you're going to have a lot of initiatives coming through. One of the first problems we see, and it sounds like kind of silly to say it's a problem, but the first challenge a lot of people run into is that once they put a hub initiative out, all of a sudden all the other departments see it and they're like, oh, I actually want an initiative too. So you get like a flood of people who are coming in and asking for initiatives. And that's why it's so important, like I said, to get the process down as well, because I think there's opportunity for this to scale really quickly as it catches wind within the organization. You also should have a data lead, so someone who's familiar with the data. I know a lot of data stewardship is a hot topic right now, and who owns these certain sets of data. That might not be totally figured out for all the data, but having someone who can navigate those courses with the different departments is very important. And then a trading coordinator. This could be as simple as someone knowing what Esri training courses to go to kind of get people up to speed with ArcGIS Hub. Organizationally, it's really important to have your executive sponsors on board. Executive sponsorship of this is incredibly important because it can be public-facing. It's really important to have them in the know, as well as that sponsor, the main sponsor owner that you're going to have for this. Internal champions, these are people who are going to be in your various departments. I'm sure at first within your organizations, not all departments are going to want to jump on board with this. They might have data issues where they're afraid of exposing some set of data, or their processes aren't built to work with this kind of workflow just yet. But there will be several departments that are going to have these internal champions who are excited and they see the vision behind Hub and behind setting up these initiatives. And those are great resources to work with because they can not only help you get these first ones up and running and be very cooperative, but they can also spread the word to other organizations. We like to say that a lot of times these hub initiatives spread by envy within organizations. So people see it and they're like, I want that, I want this for my initiative too. And that's kind of where the snowball effect kind of happens, that you can start to get a lot of people wanting this at once. One important thing that we always see is that, like I had mentioned before, this is a little different than your communication department or your public relations is going to be used to, because it's going to give you the ability to directly edit a public-facing site. So making sure you have a process down and you have a representative from that department is going to be very important, especially with design and branding, with places that are sticklers for design and branding. Luckily, ArcGIS Hub and creating the site itself allows for you to set some branding within the site so it copies to each of the pages, but still having them in mind so that they know that it's keeping up with the branding of the other websites and kind of their vision and their brand's guidebook is important. Jumping over, technical team. Now you might have these in some capacity, but they might not be totally dedicated to the hub team, but just having resources available who can work, like I said, the technical lead, the data lead, having the GIS manager on board will be very important. This is going to be a new workflow for GIS departments as well, because it's, I've heard a lot of people say, when they have a GIS manager who is running these hubs, they say, I have a background in desktop GIS, and I'm starting to get to know WebGIS, but this is something totally different because it also involves design, page design. So I know that can be kind of that's kind of a new territory for some GIS departments, so it's important to have them keyed in, especially because a lot of these initiatives depend on apps which depend on the data that they're usually going to be stewards of in some fashion. We also see, just having your IT department resources, connecting those good, and data scientists, which is a new kind of upcoming It's a really hot career that's kind of popping up a lot. We see a lot more data scientists, and these are the people who are going to be able to do the analysis that you can then turn into some of these apps and these really cool visualizations that you can put on the page. For initiative teams, I like to think of this, you can see I have a couple cards here. You're going to have a different team for every initiative because you're going to have different subject matter experts pulled in from each of these departments. So having that initiative lead who can keep track of that will be really important, or at least someone in that role. But also having a specific initiative coordinator for the initiative who the hub project manager and initiative lead can reach out to while you're developing and then later on operating these hub sites will be important, as well as knowing the subject matter experts, having initiative manager or then content contributors. This could also bleed out into the community a little bit. So these could be members of maybe area nonprofits or community members that are getting involved. And like I mentioned before, you can actually add them into your organization on ArcGIS Online so that they can be a part of that team as you're creating this content. So when you're preparing this internal team, some best practices that we've seen is you want to form an actual working group. Otherwise, if this is left to kind of one person, or maybe you haven't divvied up exactly who's going to be working on this, stuff could fall through the cracks on this. So forming that hub working group is pretty important right from the beginning, and setting a regular meeting schedule and cadence is going to be really important to keep the momentum going. I think you'll see that there's a lot of momentum at first, and then you'll get into some things like, oh, we got to start figuring out some of these data challenges that we're having, or maybe we need to go through some of this design aspect of this. And you don't want that cadence to fail because it could slow down progress, especially if you're trying to hit a certain timeline that you have. One of the big things is creating a space to store documentation. So this could be documentation on best practices that you guys have found internally for creating hub sites, links to training resources, having your plan for maybe your priority of initiatives. Having this in one place and one place to communicate with stakeholders is going to be really important, like maybe an email alias for your organization on talking about directly to the hub. Of course, ensure all your team members have the access to ArcGIS Online accounts and roles and group membership as you're creating this. Esri Training has this really cool new feature where you can create a training plan. And I think that's going to be a really interesting choice for your organizations. If you find that you're creating initiatives with certain web apps, so let's say you have initiatives that incorporate Operations Dashboard and Survey 123, you could grab some of those courses and make your own training plan right on Esri Training's website. And I think that'd be a great way to speed up people and onboard them into this process. That'll be something you'll see really quickly, is that people, when they start to get interested in this, they're going to need to latch onto something, and there's a lot of those like 5-minute videos, like quick what is WebGIS videos that you can link into there and get people up to speed a little bit quicker on creating their own platform. So you can start to distribute the work out a little more, and it's not focused on just your GIS department or your functional area that's starting your hub up. And then, of course, having your kickoff meetings. So setting your initial priorities, your timeline, your scope, assigning responsibilities, which is really important, and then getting that executive sign-off and consensus to begin. Now, of course, this is a really formal best practices, but you might also be in a situation where you just want to explore Hub and you want to just start to see what it's like to put something together. And it's totally fine if you're just that one person who's interested in Hub and you have some existing apps or some existing websites and you want to convert those into a Hub site. I think this is really showing like what you're going to need as you're continuing to develop and scaling, how you can set a good cadence with creating these hub initiatives as you move forward. But at first, you might not be totally as formal as this. Just getting a hub website and just starting to experiment with it is going to really be able to give you results that you can show people, so you can get this kind of infrastructure in place within your organization. The first thing, of course, is to assess your current situation and then set the priorities for what we want to tackle first. I've seen a lot of people that try and go into it and they're like, let's get every single thing we have into Hub right now. But that's not realistic. We really need to focus in on the things that are going to be quick wins for you and the most high impact initiatives that you guys have. So you're looking at your strategic initiatives, your executive priorities, the things you have in place right now, and then looking at the existing resources that are related to them. So your data, maps and apps, your training, who has been trained to be users or creators on this, and then any material. One thing I love to look for, and this is a great indicator for something that could be a hub site moving forward, or an app, is material like PDF reports that you have to constantly update every year, or surveys that are paper and you have to kind of like manually transcribe those, or then even your own existing websites right now that might be in need of an update. These are great places to start to look for existing resources that can be leveraged to be a quick win within Hub when you're making these sites. And then determining your priorities. So like I said, that's going to be the amount of effort versus the importance of doing that. So if this is something that you have the data for right now and you have the apps for right now, that's a great first way to show the power of creating these Hub initiatives versus something that maybe your data isn't digitalized yet or connected in. So having that, getting executive approval on that, and making sure your initiatives have champions within their subject matter expertise within your organization. I like to show this. This is something that I developed by looking at like a dozen smart city maturity paths and seeing some of the common themes that they made between these. And this is a great way when you're starting to think about Hub to say, where are we on all this? Because when people come into Hub, everyone's at a different point in this process, and they all have different strengths and weaknesses that they're going to have to make sure they account for when they're going through and creating these Hub websites. So I like to break it down into leadership and governance, strategy and workflows, technology and data, culture and training, and engagement. Engagement can vary if you don't work too much with citizens directly, but maybe with agencies. If maybe you're part of a regional organization that has agencies, you can kind of think of citizen or engagement as agency engagement, or your main stakeholders that you're trying to reach. If we have some time, I can even go through a little bit more on each of these. But going through these, and I actually like to have people do like a count, like between 1 to 5, how prepared do you think you are right now on this? And even with some of our larger hubs, even some large cities and organizations that we've seen, they would land around 50-50 on this, on how prepared they are. That's very normal. A lot of these things are places that people haven't even started to broach, like some of this engagement aspects. It's parts that you might have piecemeal throughout the organization, but maybe you don't really have a grasp on overall, and that's good to know. It's good to know where these blind spots might be, because you can plan for that as you're moving forward. Setting up the Hub, this is going to be a very straightforward one. This is maybe the easiest process in this. First is, if you're going to get Hub Premium, buy Hub Premium. Otherwise, if you have ArcGIS Online, you could set it up right through here. We had 5 steps here. I just learned that actually one of these steps is gone, I believe, so now we have 4 steps. We're getting efficiencies right now, right during UC. So we have create the role within your organization that's a publisher, and we have a couple steps here, like make your groups available to open data. You can do that through the settings, create groups with update capabilities, and then manage your open data sites too. So those are going to be the additional roles that they have for this new role. Assign non-admin members to that role, and then visit the Hub admin application, which is hub.arcgis.com/admin, if you ever need to know off the top of your head. And that's through the app launcher you can get to. You can either type that in through the URL, or you can go to the app launcher, which is right on that top right corner on ArcGIS Online. And in there, add those members to the team tab on these. So these are going to be your core team members who are going to be working with an ArcGIS Hub. Yes, we have Brenda here, Brenda Wolf. That's right, that's gone too. Cross that one off too. Strike that in my addendum. Thank you. So now we get to creating the pilot initiatives. I think this first part's very fun. For creating the pilot initiatives, it's gathering the requirements and designing these initiatives out. You see, this picture here is actually one that I did recently, where I love brainstorming. You get some Post-it notes on the wall, start sketching out some ideas, and you can create, you can really get out a lot of the stuff that's going to make up the components of this hub, even if you don't have a great idea at first on exactly what's going to be on the page. That's okay. Don't worry about that. As long as you know the stakeholders that you're trying to go for and their needs from this initiative, you can start to brainstorm what are the kind of features that they're going to want. What are the kinds of things that we can't go without on this page for this user group? I like to start by looking through who the hub team is, and then looking through who the stakeholders of this initiative are, and talking through with each of them what they'd like to see out of this initiative. And from that, you can start to say, well, if they would like to see an easy way to submit their application for this volunteer initiative, we should put a survey 1, 2, 3 in place on this page somewhere. So I like to get all those ideas out there and then just actually start wireframing like the components. So like survey goes here, start really broad at first and then very low fidelity and then start to hone in and then eventually just even move right into Hub itself and make that. A lot of people like to create a dev site in Hub and then your live site too, so you can make changes in one. So that's a little good best practice there. You can even do that by cloning the site once you've got it, and you can clone. There's a little clone button. I'll show you that when we get into that in a little bit. And another thing is creating the sitemap is really vital, especially if you have a larger initiative that's going to have sub-pages or sub-initiatives. Like a lot of people would say, we want to do a sustainability page. But within their organization, they might have several dozen sustainability initiatives. So it's a little too broad to say, let's do a sustainability initiative. You really should, especially on your first pilots, narrow into a more reasonable first page effort. And site hierarchies are going to help you. You can see one kind of right here. You can kind of just sketch out roughly what the kind of pages are going to be on this. So a lot of times it can be by department, so you're scheduling out by department, or maybe it's location-based by different sectors or areas that you have. But sketching out how those pages are going to be developed, usually the nice part is that once one type of page in this area, like let's say you're doing one for a different city in your regional organization, once you have one of the pages down, you really have the template in place to make the other ones too. So thinking through this in terms of template is going to be important for not having to duplicate effort when this is a process, not only during creating the first initiative, but also in initiatives that are to come after that as well. So once you've created, and there's a little sitemap down there. Another great thing is to look at other sites for hubspiration. That's my new word. I just trademarked it. I haven't cleared that by anyone though, so we'll see how it goes. So hashtag hubspiration Twitter right now. We have our hub demo-cityx website here. I also put a little bit.ly link so you can write that down, but this is great, and we'll actually take a look at this right now. But this is great to see how other people some of our best examples on how other people are using these websites. And I can actually jump over right now and show you that site. So on this site, you'll see we have some tweets from UC here. Here's some newly added examples that we have, sir. So we can come here and view a lot of these. Johns Creek is a great one if you're thinking about adding in data that's not necessarily spatial, like financial data. That's an interesting one for that because it uses a lot of graphs and charts in that. And then we have some videos that can explain this a little more, and it gets in a little more of these. I can jump over to some great examples I've seen. Like if you're just looking to do an open data site right now, Maryland GIS catalog is a great one, and they have so many categories. Look at this. This is amazing. I love categorization on that. DC, if you were at the Hub SIG meeting, you saw this point out a little bit, but I love this addressing in DC initiative that they created because like he explained at the SIG yesterday, he points people to this when they have questions, and usually their questions are answered because it is so in-depth on what the data is here and what the different parts of this means. So I love this site as well. And I also, if you're looking at a site that just has maybe one dashboard, there's Celebrate One from Columbus, Ohio. They have this great dashboard in here which uses a different version of one of our templatized initiatives, which is our performance dashboard here. And you can get into the history of each of these indicators that they've described here. Another feature that we've seen, this is Measure A from the City of Long Beach. And this uses a cool trick known as anchors. So anchors have the ability to, you can have all these links, and even though they're all on the same page, it's going to shoot you right to that exact, it's going to shoot you right down to the exact project listing on this. So if you have you want to put a bunch of projects up at once, you can add these anchors in here, and it'll give you the ability to link out to a bunch of different sections within one hub page. So there's a few examples. I love looking through these and seeing what people are doing. It's a great way to get inspiration for your hub sites when you're going through those as well. Let me get to the next one here. As far as creating those pilot initiatives, you're going to be creating your branding, your header and footer. We have a couple different ways you can do that. You can create your own custom HTML, CSS header and footer. Ensuring that your data sources are available. This is going to be a big one, especially if you have apps that you have hypothetically created that might have data sources. When you're thinking through potential apps that you can put on the site, it's really important to think, do we have this data available? And if not, what do we have to do to get this data available to us too? adding open data groups for the initiative and groups manager to search, creating and linking to your maps and web apps that you create, creating the other content such as graphics, photos, and text, and then into a little more advanced, you can use our Bootstrap 3 HTML, CSS. If you know how to edit that or you have someone who can edit that, you can further customize that page design a little bit as well. And then finally, launching those Hub Initiative pages to the public and publicizing those through social media, your other public relations avenues that you guys have. This is a typical breakdown that we like to see, and this is a great way to start to design your site too, is just say, we want a banner, we have our mission statement, we're gonna put apps here, and then I like to take that wireframe that I made and just make it in Hub. So I can show you that. It's fairly straightforward. If you haven't gotten a chance to just try Hub and just create something, I would say take an existing page that you have and just try to recreate it in Hub just to see what the capabilities of Hub are. So I'm going to open up a new initiative right here just so you can see that process. So here's our Hub overview. I'm going to hit new here, and I'm going to say UC 2019. There we go. I made a few of these. So you'll see it's going to start to create some groups automatically in the background, and it's going to create the site as well. So every initiative has a site associated with it, and that site can have multiple pages. Those pages can also be hooked into other sites as well. So let's say you have a bunch of project sites, and each of them has a sustainability page, and then you have a main sustainability site. You can link those pages to that site as well. So it's a little, the pages aren't just going to be under this. You can move them from site to site as well. So don't be too afraid on doing anything that's going to be permanently changed while you're in this piloting mode and you're testing stuff out. You're going to start with something that looks like this, and I like to walk through. You can, right here, change your header to a couple of our different options here, or go into and make a custom one as well to match your city or organization's branding. Same thing with the footer. You can make a custom one there as well. And this is really nice, and this is something I was saying you should talk with your communications team beforehand, is what are the themes that they're going to want to default use on these sites, so that once you make another page, it'll automatically apply all these themes to it, and all these colors here. For when you're creating the site yourself, essentially the site is made up of rows of content, and each of those rows have blocks on here, have these which are these widgets here, which you see on the side. So if you wanted to add an image into this Our Progress So Far place, you would drag the image block over and you drop it in here. And then in this panel over side, it would say, you put your image URL or upload directly in through here, and then here's some other options. Putting in alt text, very important for hitting any required guidelines for your websites, is having some alt text that describes what the picture is. And maybe even you can use these as hyperlinks as well and hyperlink those out. So putting this together, and you see why when I make those wireframes, then I immediately go in and I just start to put in these blocks into place, because you don't even need to have the content right away. You just have to really know kind of what the design is like, and you can start to socialize that with stakeholders and see if that is trending towards what they would like. You also have the ability, like I said, to do a little more in-depth customization. You'll see that this is a text box here, but if I look at this code view here, you can see that there's actually some code in the background of this that's going to allow you to make some of these cool, this little chart here. So it's really about just editing this. When you want to create new pages, you can come back here and just hit new page, or even link existing pages through here. And I'm going to leave this site. I didn't spell page right. That's all right. It's a happy little error. So, and it's going to automatically create those. Now on the back end of this, you're going to have your own initiative page that's going to be able to show you your initiative team members. So adding people into that initiative team specifically for this one site will be important, especially in those functional areas. So you see now I have the second page here too. So really just sketching out the whole site is how I make this, and you keep iterating on this process until you get to a point where the stakeholders say, yeah, that looks good to go. I think there's definitely a lot of things you could do with all your initiatives, and you probably have a lot of ideas in your head. I think starting small and growing is a really good aspect, because it'll get you into the process of not just doing a one and done update, but you're constantly updating and growing that site with new information. So even if you don't have all the components that you need at first, I think getting a site out there is going to be great. It's going to be a great resource for a lot of people. And even just making data sets available, like through open data, is such a time saver for not only the people external to the organization, but internally with your organization too. The city of Brampton in Canada, they said they saved, I think it was over 400 man hours by putting a hub in place, because all of these apps and these data sets that people would commonly request, all of a sudden those requests were off their plate because people had the ability to get that stuff on their own. And the same thing holds true with initiatives and the content that comes from those. Just do a little time check here. As you create your first pilot initiatives, some of these initiatives may also include the ability to incorporate those community accounts in those as well. So when you have these community users, they're going to be able to subscribe to initiatives, and they'll be able to create their own content based on those as well. So I think there's also an aspect where you should start to think, if you want to get community accounts involved in your hub pages, how are they going to be interacting with this? How do you want them, what kind of apps are you going to want them to use? What kind of data sets are they going to need to do the kind of stuff that you're going to want to do your initiative? And as you continue to operate and grow this hub out, you want to make sure you're planning for the continued usage of these hub sites. It's not, you can do periodic updates, but the data is going to be live, and new features are always coming out for ArcGIS Hub. New Esri apps are becoming available. And I think it's always good to just have a regular cadence throughout the year where you can start to, say, review your pages that you already have existing, say what needs to be overhauled with added new apps or new sections, new information into this, what needs to be archived, maybe you're going to move it to a different section, move the page to a different area, or what pages need to be maybe sunsetted or removed entirely as well. So if you're looking through all your pages and continuing to refine them and make sure that you are staying up to date with all these initiatives is going to be really important. We find that that's another wall a lot of people hit, is they'll get that first burst of momentum and they'll get a few out there, but because they really didn't take too much time to think about the processes internally that they have and how they're going to be able to scale and continue to build new initiatives, they kind of have a lull after that first one until they get their processes and frameworks in place that they can start to do other data, that they can start doing other initiatives. Another thing that we see is that once a first batch of initiatives come out, you might then see a lot more utility in adding a lot of data sets, because those data sets are the foundation for the apps that you can put into initiatives. So making sure that there's a geospatial strategy overall and geospatial governance in your organization is really great for being able to collaborate more effectively as you're going through these. I think a lot of, you might have a GIS steering committee or GIS strategy committees. They could be great places to develop the priorities for these initiatives as they come through. And then, of course, just continuing to grow internal knowledge, find new champions that are excited to learn WebGIS tools and ArcGIS Hub within your organization. Using similar templates. We have the ability with ArcGIS Hub Premium to templatize your initiatives, but also just generally templatizing, like, what does a standard hub page for when we put a new infrastructure project page out? What is that going to look like? That's going to make it a lot easier to do these with new projects as they pop up rather than starting all over again. So really think about templatizing the process that you do to use these. And also on the back end of ArcGIS Hub, you also have the ability to track usage and metrics, and you can add Google Analytics in as well if you're using that. So adding that in is always going to be a great way to get some more insight on how people are using these pages as you go through. This is something I like to, I mentioned Brampton before, and I love these. I always show these because it shows the growth that happens on this. This is really a living system, and you're trying to incorporate these within your organization's processes. So it's not going to be an all-at-once type thing. It's going to be a process that's going to grow as you continue to create these initiatives and use Hub. So they started out with just their internal departments putting open data out there. That was their first one. And then they started to see, well, if we can use the GeoHub, we can start to put open data out there, but also services and collaboration and information like dashboards, surveys, story maps. So they started to get a little more robust in the types of content, not just raw data, but also the context around that data. And now they're at a point where they're seeing, we have our internal usage of this, which we can do our own internal initiatives with. And we also have our external usage and all of our external initiatives, and we can have different residents of the community involved in this, different organizations in the community involved with this at different levels. And I love this one because it just shows how in-depth you can get with this. It really is like a canvas for helping to boost that collaboration within your organization. I wanted to try and leave, so we have about 15 minutes or so here, so I wanted to leave some time for some Q&As, maybe some things that you guys have been running into. We have quite a few people in the room here from on Esri's side that could help to answer some of these questions too. So if you guys have any questions around Hub or any questions related to any of those categories I showed you on that themes, I'll pull that back up and we can look through that. I'd love to hear them. Hold on, let me pull that up here. Oh, sorry. Any question I can take? Yes, I have right here. I'll just repeat it once you say it. Yeah.
So regarding the Hub team, so you have the core team and the GIS manager is under.
Yes, yes.
So I was wondering, Hub is the GIS-centric system, and also just I think your last slide you mentioned, the key for operating and growing the Hub is to have a GIS strategy. Without having the GIS manager who begin with sells the idea,
Right.
so understands what Esri offers.
Right. I think it's always important. So you're saying like you might not have a GIS manager or that strategy in place. How do we move forward? Like how do we move forward with that?
Or in other words, is the GIS manager not supposed to be under the core Hub team?
Oh yeah, no, they can be under, and a lot of times that Hub project manager will be the GIS manager. That's why I like to say these are capabilities rather than think of these as individual people, because a lot of times people will be wearing a couple different hats on these. And although it is nice to know your limitations, not spread yourself too thin, like give that Hub project manager who already has a full list of responsibilities this huge Hub project without support. You'll also see that a lot of these, like the GIS manager will usually be pretty heavily involved in a lot of organizations within that core Hub team. Yeah, so these don't necessarily have to be singular people, and that GIS manager there could be that person up there as well. Just important. Sometimes we also see hubs grow not out of the GIS department, but out of other functional areas within organizations. So that's kind of where that would come from, just as a general rule. We had another question. We have one back here. Hello. Yes.
So within your template ability, if an initiative has a bunch of pages associated with it, does it make a template out of the full package of pages associated with that?
Yeah, so if you clone a site, it's going to clone all the pages as well under it. For like templatizing initiatives, I have to get no, she had it out. Yeah, I know they just put in. I believe when you templatize an initiative, you're going to have in the initiative pages and apps that you can templatize within that. So it's going to be able to templatize more than just the one.
Okay, and the other further question is, any best practices around how existing hubs are using the pages within an initiative?
How they're using pages within initiatives?
How can you see the long scroll of pages? And is it parsing off parts of like surveys, or is it more supporting content that they use pages for?
So how are people using pages? Okay, so that's good. Yeah, so a lot of times with apps, apps on their own, web apps can open up into their own window, like Operations Dashboard or Web App Builder. But you'll see a lot of people, if they have, there's just so many ways to use pages because it really is like a blank canvas. But I'll see a lot of people to use them for sub areas of a certain project, like that one I showed you, Measure A. They have 5 different focus areas, so they've broken out their project lists into 5 pages under there. You also see pages go maybe like it'll be an intermediary page between a data set, a raw data set, like the open data link to it, and your main page, so it gives a little more context. Maybe it can explain how it's used, such as that DC addressing page. Overall, the pages really, and this is why it's so important to create that page hierarchy or that site layout as you're in the beginning, because there's a lot of different ways you can utilize those pages, and it really is up to your your individual needs for your initiatives on that. But if anyone, of course we'll talk on that a little bit later, but if anyone wants to talk about how we've seen some of these put out, you can go through those examples I put up and I'll be here afterwards so we can talk about that. Any other questions? Yes.
So my organization's on the Hub Lite or the free version, free quote unquote version, and you talked about preparing people if you wanted to like switch to premium. We're kind of in that phase where we're trying to get everybody involved. How would you structure the conversation to really help them understand what they get with the premium that they don't already have with the free?
Right. So I would say if you are like debating on whether you want to try Hub, like I like that you're already using that Hub that comes with ArcGIS Online. I would say if you have something you want to try, you should start on Hub Basic right now because a lot of those features exist in there. The things that don't are those community-focused ones. So you have those community accounts that are come online with the Hub Premium version. And I would structure it around that community organization. I think that's really the most meaningful aspect of this, where you're going to be, and also templatized initiatives, which can also be meaningful even without the community in their own right. But I would say that the big selling points of that is that you're going to be able to take those users that are just anonymous users normally, and you're going to be able to give them identities and have them be able to collaborate more effectively within the organization using those community accounts. It's going to expose people to a more in-depth usage of the data that you're providing. So I think it adds that extra level in there. And as far as templatized initiatives, that's going to really help you save a lot of time with things like we've seen, if you have an if you live in an area where there's natural disasters or maybe there's incidents in town or special events, you could create templates to save even more time, and you can stand those up right away without having to go through the work of like creating all those pages all over again. So those are the two really big parts. And then it's when you get into stuff like using the calendar or the events portion of this, that's going to extend out that community organization even further by having them directly sign up for those events that you can do. There's a calendar widget that you can embed in the pages as well, so you can see all the events that are on there, and I believe you can take the feature service from that too and track that. So those are some of the main features for ArcGIS Hub Premium that distinguish it from the open data, the basic version. Yeah.
Speaking of their users, the residents or citizens logging in, are there tools with thousands, 20,000 people? Are there ways for managing what they can see and what not see relatively?
Right. We have community admin accounts, which you can have through there. So there you can add them into groups. They're like the structure of the community organization. It is ArcGIS Online before the community, and their roles are limited already. Like they don't get different roles. It's one type of role that they have on there. So there are basic limits that are built in there, and they can't access your ArcGIS Online organization and your main organization unless you've shared the data to them or publicly. But you'll have that admin ability, so you can be admin on that. They will be able to log in with Facebook, Gmail, and then soon they're also going to allow them to log in with their own email address that's not Gmail-based too. So I think that community admin will be a big part in administrating that community, and if you want to like remove people or gate the type of stuff they can see, you can create groups just like ArcGIS Online within that organization. We've seen some people that maybe they have a bunch of different member agencies and they want to create a group in that community organization for all of them and then add them to that group only, and then they access the information. So it's kind of like it's still like an open community, but you can still gate it a little bit with the groups and our normal ArcGIS Online groups, roles, permissions. Any other questions? Yes?
So this is kind of a comment and a question. So this application is, I think it's causing some consternation in my organization. Mostly because the web team was perfectly happy with the GIS people as long as they're just making little things, right? Make your little applications be no problem. Now Hub rolls out, oh, that looks like a web page.
Right.
So, my question is, do you have any? So we're trying to fold them in. Like, okay, you guys be partners on this too. We're all
That's good. Avoid the turf war.
Bring them in, right? We don't want to fight. We want to be able to use tools that we can. It integrates really well with our stuff, data and apps. It's great. So we're trying to bring them in on that. But I guess I'm looking for. Do you have any
advice or examples of places where that's worked, and then two, just every time we bring them in to sit down and look at this, there's always they're Drupal developers, like that's right? That's their expertise. Great, we have great Drupal. So if I don't even know what I'm asking for here, but is there ways to facilitate integration between this Drupal or WordPress things and
I get you. I think you already have a very nice stance toward the communication department. People have handled that much worse, I would say, than trying to pull them into the fold. So I think working with them at first and just making sure that they know the capabilities of Hub and that if they need access, they have access to the Hub too is important. But I think having that a development site and the live site will be a great way to have them. Now, as far as like teaching these Drupal developers like the using the WYSIWYG editor, I mean, I think right, that's. But it's also, if they're already having you make web app builders, that's also a WYSIWYG editor in a way too. So I think you just need to help them shift their mindset. It's not like you're starting up a WordPress site. This very much is an application within ArcGIS Online. So if they can see the logic behind like the web app builders, which is also a configurable app, right?
yeah, but that's very math, right?
Right, that's true. And then this could be all text too. Like sometimes you have a Hub page, it could be all text, no maps too. Yeah. I think talking that through, and I guess it depends organization to organization. If communication department, maybe they would want to have control over some aspects of that, like setting boundaries on that would be important. But yeah, you bring up a good question, and I know it's kind of like, what is the answer here? Because this is part of this organizational change that you guys are going to encounter when you're putting these hubs in place. There's ingrained processes that we all have in these organizations. There's actually a German word, it's called Einstellung. It's where you do the same thing so many times that you actually start to lose the ability to see that there's other ways to do things. So I think it's like breaking out of that mindset that is ingrained within the organization. And I wish I had like more concrete advice than you, but I think you're already taking the best approach, which is just being really upfront and collaborative with them. I think we'll have to leave it. Maybe we can maybe if you go talk to the Hub team and poke them, you can get one of the Hub product team members to talk with your communication team. Yeah. Talk through that kind of stuff. Yeah. I saw a question right back here, maybe. Yes.
So much of a question, but like a response.
Oh, perfect.
A session earlier about managing users in AGOL, and I think they related to Hub, and you can give them access to just like be able to modify like the templates and like the color schemes and stuff, because a lot of times they just don't want it to be seamless and look like their website, and so then you can just give them permissions to edit like the color schemes and like that kind of data, but not like the content piece.
Yeah,
So maybe that would help.
Sorry, we've actually done that, and that helps a little bit. But again, part of it is just like, this is our church. Right? You're doing something, you're using new technology to do what we already do.
You got a real Sharks versus Jets situation going on here. Well, I'd love to hear as it moves forward. Yeah. Anything else? I'll be around. Let me see what time it is. Oh, we still got 6 minutes, so I can keep fielding some questions. Oh, yeah. Thanks, everyone, for coming out.